Yeah. I'm very pleased to have TG Campbell back with me today. Hi, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm TG Campbell, and obviously I write crime fiction, and my books are about the Bolshevik Society. So it's a group of amateur detectives who operate in Victorian London. Each member society has got a normal job in addition to being a detective. So you've got a doctor, an architect, illusionist, and they use their skills and knowledge from the ordinary jobs to solve different cases that society gets asked to look into. And the society's clerk, Miss Becca Trent, is the one responsible for assigning members and to start and basically disciplining members, just make sure everything runs smoothly.
Yeah, awesome. And you have a new book out, I believe.
Yes, so this is the case of the Pugilist Ploy, which is the 6th book in the series. But yes, it comes out today, the 5th of December. It's taken me literally all year to write, but I'm quite pleased with it. But yeah, so it's all with this one, because each book tends to have a theme. So the last book was sort of very much around the society and one of the members in the society, but this one is all about boxing. So it's all about gloved boxing, is where it's bare knuckle, and sort of the time when it was got one group trying to like sort of stick to the old ways of doing bare knuckle boxing, and the other group trying to sort of do the more respectable kind of the Queensberry rules and trying to really make it more of an art form rather than a brutal blood sport. So it was really interesting sort of research. But yeah, so basically the main mystery centres around that, as well as you've got sort of the because throughout the whole series you have like other plots going throughout the whole series, so they continue and expand and develop. That's why it ends up sort of taking so long to write this one.
And how did you go about researching that? I imagine that was quite tough because you set them, back in time. So is there a lot of information about boxing in that sort of era?
So because I'd already decided a couple of my characters were going to be sort of former bare knuckle boxers, so I'd already done a little bit of research. I read Peter Lovesey's second Sergeant Cribb book, The Detective War Silk Drawers, which was really good. I think it was published in the 1970s, but it was actually recommended by an essay that I'd found about the decline of boxing in the Victorian era, and it recommended it being as like a very well-researched fiction book. So I'd already looked into sort of generally sort of other sources from the time, but that book, Peter Lovesey's book, really sort of helped bring it all together in terms of more of an actual context of a story. And then I found Billy Edwards' Art of Boxing, which is a training manual that was originally published in 1888, I think it was. So he was actually a really prolific boxer of the time. He used to do bare knuckle, but he then made transition over to glove boxing. So his very much is a manual on how to train, what diet to have, how to stand, what kind of equipment to use. But he also had the list of the different rules in the back of the book, because at that time, so I sort of think bare knuckle was still sort of to a certain degree was being fought in America. So you had the American rules, whereas the Queen's rules and the prize fight rules. So that was really interesting. So that was actually quite a lot of information from the era about boxing. I also have somebody at work who was a former boxer, so he read it as well and to give it feedback. So that was handy. But yeah.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
There was so much information.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah.
And is this a completely new character again then, from like the previous 5?
So in terms of who's sort of brought into this one, so obviously Miss Trent's always in it. You have sort of particular characters always tend to be reoccurring. So you've got Mr. Snyder's the cabman, Miss Dexter's the artist, and Jason Maxwell's the journalist. So they're in it. But I have, so when like the first like 3 or 4 books, I've sort of introduced new characters. From like book 5 and book 6, I sort of revisited old characters. Because it's just, I think there's so much going on with their lives and everything. I think if you keep introducing new people, it gets a bit confusing. People have said that there's obviously quite a lot of characters, but quite a lot of members, because you don't have the same members each time. It depends on what the case is, depends on who gets called in. So it does change. So there's overall about 15 members that the reader knows about. So I've recently released the ebook of the character guide that I gave out. I think you got a copy of that, didn't you? That because it was came out of the book of the feature event. Yeah, so people think they find that quite useful. That's the character information on the website, but the actual guide has the police characters in there, which is not on the website. So, but yeah, so in this book, you've sort of got the main sort of 3 characters, but you also have like a Mr. Skinner, who's actually he's a former member who's also been recruited other books, but he has some bare knuckle boxing experience from when he's been in the Navy. So he actually currently now works as a personal bodyguard, but he lost his hand in the Navy. But he goes undercover at the boxing club. So I thought that'd be quite interesting, a one-handed guy going into the boxing club and he's like, I want to, learn how to box. Because it was also not just about the actual boxing, it was also about staying fit, how to keep yourself stamina up and your breathing, all that sort of stuff. So it was really interesting sort of to put him in that position. But also there's Polly Hicks, who's a barmaid who hasn't really been involved in the main book. So she's appeared in a couple of the sort of stories as an investigating member, but this is the first time she's actually had a full-blown part in this, because the two factions are basically centered around pubs. So you've got one pub has the illegal bare knuckle boxing in the basement, and then the other pub has this full-blown gym with proper ring, and it's all very posh and everything. So it's the two factions centered around those two establishments really. So it was quite good to also sort of explore the class rift as well, because bare knuckle was still very much working class and glove boxing was the gentleman's sport, so
yeah. Each their own, I guess.
Yeah. But it's still the same essential culture. It was fascinating to research and to sort of explore that dedication to the sport, and not just about it just the two blokes fight each other. It's also about the skill and the art form and the manly sport, they kept saying, so some of the language is quite funny. The way some of the just describe some of the fighters in the illustrated manual was quite funny. But it is just that culture, and is a part of belonging, and it's all the slang used, and it's just really fascinating just to explore that in the Victorian setting.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a lot of fun to write, actually.
Yeah, it was definitely, and also it's quite a bit of a removal, because in the second book, which Loads of Lushington, that was centered around department stores, they had a lot of women in it, whereas this one it's all men, loads of men. All the male characters started to come in, and they all very much have sort of their input. But one of my beta readers said they found it quite refreshing to actually have a book that's centered a bit more masculine, sort of mystery. Because the first one was quite emotional with the content about that one, because it's centered around with the main members, but it was very, very emotional, very intense. So it's a bit of a refreshing departure, really, just to have something a bit less sort of, so less female input and more testosterone, basically.
Do you find it hard to switch between the voices of the characters? Because usually when you write a series, you sort of get to know the characters better each book, and they're in your head. But if you're writing from a different viewpoint, is it hard to switch?
I think some people might say they might find it difficult to write male characters, female characters, but I don't tend to have that problem. Because the characters have written for them for so long, I do find it quite easy to write for them. But for me, it's when it comes to challenging them as a character, put them in a situation that you have to make an ultimate decision about what would they do. That it's going to take me a bit of a while to sort of think, well, because sometimes I'll do one way and I think, no, they wouldn't do that because they're principles and everything, and they have to keep rewriting it. But sometimes one of my favourite characters, Inspector Conway, but he's sometimes very guarded. So sometimes it feels like I'm trying to get out of him what he actually is thinking and feeling. Sometimes it's a bit like trying to get blood from a stone. But at the same time, I've also got to try and just, he's not very forthcoming with his emotions and what he's thinking. But at the same time, I need to know what he's thinking. But even I find it difficult to actually get in under his skin. But he's one of the more popular characters in the series. But I think it depends how often your characters also appear in the books. I do have some minor members who only appeared a handful of times, or just once in the main books. But then I do have also characters whose lives aren't having necessarily got dramas in. They're quite happy married, they've got a nice job, they're quite happy, they're quite comfortable. So as much as I would like to include them a bit more, sometimes it's a bit difficult to get their conflict because they haven't really got any conflict. But I do think it's important to have that contrast between the characters who have a bit more hectic lives and a bit more drama, and the ones that are just quite happy, just living a quiet life, basically. So
yeah. So you've got to book 6. Is that the end, or have you got loads more in mind to do?
So for the current run of the series, I've planned up to book 10. So I've got another 4 books to go. But in this book, also the last book, Miss Dexter sort of revealed that she's going to go to Paris in the new year, because the time moves forward with each books. Even though we're in book 6, it's only just going into 897, so all the books 1 to 5 will happen at 896. So there's not really a lot of time in terms of the books themselves, but so what I want to do is I do want to do a spin-off with her time in Paris, but do more of a novella, because there's so many different members. You can technically do just standalones with them of what they're doing away from the society, because they all have lives or jobs, but it gives me opportunity to explore different genres, because one of the characters members is a spiritualist and retired schoolmaster, but he's also a member of the Ghost Hunters Club, which was a thing in Victorian London. So I like the idea of maybe doing like a small, like, gothic ghost story with him, but then you've also got like a gentleman thief, who's also an illusionist, so I've got the option of possibly doing a bit of an action thriller with him as his standalone. So it's not just doing crime fiction, but also just playing around different genres within that sort of spin-off sort of setting, really. But at the moment, the main series and the main plot is only going up to book 10, because I think it has to get to a point where you have to sort of tie everything up and you can't go on forever, basically. So I know basically what's going to happen by book 10, but with all things, as you go through these things, if things change, characters do things that you don't expect them to do, and then you have to sort of go around the houses a bit, and also people throw curveballs, and you're like, okay. And then you get to the point where you think, well, I have to do that because that would be naturally what the character would do. So then you think, we hadn't planned for that, but okay, we'll go along with it. We'll see how this goes.
So you get to book 10 and they're like, but I'm not finished. I've got more to say. So are you open to carrying on if you're or are you definitely, that's it at the end of book 10, they're done for now?
I don't. What I want to do is make sure all the sort of plots are nice, tied up by end of book 10, so that if I don't ever go back to it, you don't feel as though, oh well, I don't know what happened to that, or what happened to this person, but if I did carry on, I could then start fresh. But at the moment, I think I'm enjoying the world too much, and you do end up, when you're writing, I sort of think you find this as well, like you get to get immersed in the world and you just feel at home there, and you get to know these characters come like real people. So the thought of like just going bye-bye just is almost like mourning people who never existed, but at the same time you feel like they're your closest friends. So I can never say never, really. But I do, I say with like sort of spin-offs, also it's I like the idea of going forward in time, so like maybe after the First World War, sort of ends up maybe 1920, and just see, well, what is, because some of the characters will still be alive, because they're quite young in the series. It'd be interesting to see like what they're doing further down the line, rather than just continue just the main series. So that's another idea, it's just various sort of things. But I don't, at the moment, not everybody's going to survive this run of books. I think that's inevitable, but I think at the moment, I've just got planned to book 10. So I think I'm just going to basically see how I feel about it and where things stand by the end of book 10, and how different it looks to the plan I've got at the moment, basically.
The 1920s would be such a cool time to write about as well. Like the Victorian era is awesome, and the 1920s is the next cool era, isn't it? Where there's a lot happening and change. And
and I think like, because Miss Trent will still be reasonable age at that point, but I also think she very much would enjoy the 1920s, and she would embrace the cultural shift and everything, and she would very much be like there in amongst it all. Some of the older characters would have been ancient by then, if not not around anymore. But I think it would be interesting to see how the war also would have impacted people's lives, and whether they would have signed up, and if they hadn't signed up, why didn't they sign up? If they survived the war, how that left them and stuff. So I think it would be very, I think it generally just would be a good era to sort of to delve into with the same characters, but it just completely changed. It's a bit more liberal, isn't it? With the 1920s, a bit more flappers and that sort of things. I think some of the characters be like, okay, it's a bit too much for me. But but yeah, it's I think it would be interesting.
Who's your favourite character to write?
So, as I won't mention it, Inspector Conway is one of my favourite police characters to write, because even though on the surface he seems quite simple, he's married to his job, basically. He just, but he's very complex, a lot of quite different layers underneath that, and he's so pivotal to the main plot that runs throughout the whole series. and also he's got sort of split loyalty really between like society and the police and the whole culture of the police at the time. But within the actual society itself, I think out of those members, I think it's probably Mr. Locke, who is the illusionist master thief, because again, I mean, at the moment he's not really been in it much because he's battling with a heroin addiction, but again, that's sort of, it's somebody who's somebody who's like, who's not perfect, he's not like, you know, he's quite suave when he's with it, but at the moment he's not quite with it. But again, I think he's getting one of those characters who it seems quite simple on the surface, but it's got quite so many different layers and motivations beneath. And also, I quite enjoy exploring his marriage to his wife, Dr. Locke, and how that is developed and how that we'll just see how that goes once he recovers from his heroin addiction. Because at the moment, she's put into a rehabilitation program that was created at the time for an American doctor about how to go through rehabilitation of opium addiction. So, because originally his wife was supplying him with the heroin in the effort to try to hopefully wean him off it, but then he basically relapsed and went to an opium den. So basically, so she's had to start at square one. But yeah, so it'll be interesting. Obviously, that the conflict and the tension that's created between the two of them, because he was also a bit of a ladies' man, shall we say, before that. So it's so, but yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see how he sort of enters a bit more back into the fold of society and sort of emerges back into his former life, really, and see how that evolves. But yeah, he is, out of the members, he's my favourite character.
And how do you keep up with them all? Do you have notes or are they all in your head?
I have, each character always gets, when I first create a character, I get a character profile, which has got name, like description, marital state. I always have the date of birth, their parents were, that sort of thing. And then what I would tend to do is, because it's quite a key thing, I'll then just update the character profile, just use that to refer back to. But mostly it's just in my head. So I've also got the books to refer back to, but I can't remember particular detail because it said something in particular. And also because I've been working on the audio book of the first one, I did more detailed character profiles for the voice actors. So that's also helped me sort of develop a bit further beyond sort of what I've done for the books. I think because I've got so many members, I think I do need to keep something. Otherwise, I just
yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, keep track of them all. Yeah, but so the minor ones, so they haven't really had that much input in the sense of they haven't really been in the books that much, so they haven't really got a lot going on. But yeah, the ones, it's stuff like with the bodyguards, like remember which of his hands is the one that is lost, because that'd be really embarrassing. Oh, but here was your left hand in the last book, it's under your right hand. Have you lost both of them? You know, so yeah. Yeah.
I think Mark Billingham said that one of his characters, their eye colour changed by book 5 or something, because he doesn't make any notes about his characters, and someone's like, I'm sure it was a different colour, and it's like, oh.
Well, you know, you do say your eye colour can change as you get older, so that'll be his excuse.
Yeah, I suppose within reason. If you're changing from like brown to blue or something, then, you know, perhaps not.
Yeah, but yeah, I suppose. But then how many people would pay that much attention to characters' eye colour, I suppose. Sometimes you could get away with, I think.
There will be one person out of all the people.
There was that one person.
How did you choose character names?
What I tend to do is I go onto behindthename.com, and it's got a tool called the random renamer, and you put in like the what's the word, the nationality of the character that you want to do. To have like all the characters, but also have like you put some biblical or mythological, or like got Wicca and the more sort of out there ones, and then you sort of save his masculine, feminine, or like neither, and then you just put if you want a surname, it could do a random surname, and it just gives you an option. It just literally just generates a name, and I go, no, I don't like that one. And then you can, like, if you just like the surname, you just put a surname in, and it gives you just first names. And that's basically how all the characters were given their names, pretty much. With a couple of exceptions. So, Mr. Bertram Heath, he was called Bertram after at Bertram's Hotel of Christie. So, quite like that. Also, I thought the fact that because originally Mr. Locke, because he likes picking locks, I thought that's quite funny, a bit of a pun. Mr. Locke likes picking locks. And then just other people's names, just it's it's just names that I like as well. So like Inspector Caleb Wolf was like the name Caleb. So, you know, it gives excuses to be able to use these, you know, these names. But also generally, so if I read a name in a book, I think, well, that's a nice name, I'd make a note of that, you know. But it's up, sometimes you do find yourself, I think at one point, because I did do a character like database, and I realised I'd used Michael 3 times. So like, maybe not use Michael anymore.
Yeah, everyone has names, I think, that they automatically go back to, and no one really knows why.
Yeah. I think also when I've got like the members and I've got the suspects in the book as well, I've got to be careful about having names that sound similar in the same book, because then it's just like, okay, that's just really confusing. Or even like try to avoid having names with the same letter, because even then it can be really confusing.
Yeah.
So, but also I mean, it just happened by coincidence really that Mr. Locke and Dr. Wicks both got the same first name. So they're both called Percy. But like Mr. Locke will always say his name is Percival, and Dr. Weeks like it's Percy. But yeah, they always call Weeks rather than by his first name. But yeah, that was just a coincidence, really.
Yeah. I know, like, you know, in real life, people have the same name. You know, I mean, I know so many Johns and so many Daves and stuff. But obviously, in books, you know, you do have to. But you know, they're in real life, people would have the same name. So
yeah, I think it's easier in a Victorian setting. So unless you knew somebody quite well, you would use their title and their surname. You wouldn't be like, oh, Percy, you know, and like, which Percy, you know. So it's quite handy there just to call him Mr. Locke, or you know, Dr. Weeks, or just that Canadian, or the Toff, you know. So
I've got I saw a really cool name in passing. I can't remember where, but I saved it because I'm like, that is such a cool name. I've got to use that somewhere. It's so when I go through my notes in my phone, I've just got this random name.
Was that when I was reading 5 Little Pigs by Christie? It's like, oh, Ammius. I like that name. So I'm now using the name Ammius in this book. I'm like, I like the name Ammius.
Do any of your characters have traits of your personality or of anyone you know?
I think Miss Dexter, I think it's I sort of tried to put a bit of like how I can be a bit shy around certain people and a bit not as sort of like forthcoming. I think so I've done different jobs in the past. I'm a bit more sort of self-conscious where I am now because I'm a receptionist at an automotive company, so you have to be. But I think before I was a bit more timid, so I think that was when I created her. It was just trying to channel that really into her as a character. And I think I'm trying to think other things people so like her father obviously took like inspiration from some of my family members for him. Sort of little traits like the way he sort of looks like over his glasses, and you know, and what their priorities are, that sort of thing. But I just I think you always have a little bit of you in every character you create, if you're conscious or not. But I think also what I was trying to do with the characters was try to make them as different as possible. So when you do have them all in one meeting room, say, because they have like meetings, that it's not just a carbon copy of each character. But also sometimes it's interesting to have like similar traits. So you've got Miss Webster, who's quite black and white, quite sort of like she's quite confident, outspoken, and then you've got Mr. Elliot, who's also a bit black and white and quite outspoken. So them just don't like each other because it's too similar. They just remind each other too much of, you know, and they'll quite often will have discussions and arguments about points, and you know, she'll call him out if she thinks that he's being condescending, or if he thinks he's being a bit like, you know, sexist or anything, you know, and he's at the same time, you know, he'll sort of call her out if he thinks that she's been a bit unreasonable. So it is interesting, to have those different. It's basically because in the society normally these different people necessarily wouldn't have like encountered each other because of different classes and different positions and different walks of life, but because they've all come together in this common aim of trying to give justice to anybody, they're forced to basically work together. And so quite often Miss Trent has to be the voice of reason and literally have to shout over them like, enough, let's move on. We've discussed this plenty, thank you very much. You know, so she's very much the voice of reason. Well, the voice of reason, also the voice of person to discipline them sometimes as well. So just tell them just to, we respect your opinion, but we don't need to hear it. So let's carry on.
Writing about those times, obviously you've got no technology and anything, which must make it easier. But is there anything that makes it harder when you're writing in Victorian era?
I think for me, it's like I say, there's no technology, but there was some technology. It's knowing where the line is of between modern day and before, and not missing stuff out because you assume they wouldn't have that. So when I was doing research, I discovered that for a short term in 1897, they had electric taxis. So it's stuff like that. They think, oh, I can include that. But also like stuff like when they detect poisons, it's what kind of test they would use. So you can't just assume that they couldn't detect poisons at all. And also a lot of time it's the emerging sciences, which the question is always, could they use that in court? So yeah, they could use it and they could invest the case with it, but if they can't admit it as evidence in court, then what use really is there for it if you know that sense? And dark, so everything they do, they have to give to the police. I think ultimately as well, is like the most difficult thing is trying to put yourself in the position of people that you wouldn't necessarily have maybe like in the world as well, that you haven't really mixed with yourself really. So in the boxing, you know, I'm really fascinated by the world of boxing and the language of boxing, the culture of boxing, but I don't watch a lot of boxing myself, ironically. So it's like trying to put yourself in that sort of world. And I was very conscious, I didn't want to, it was about boxing, but I didn't want too much boxing. I didn't want to have pages and pages of boxing because it's great for the fans, but it was like, okay, yeah, I've seen him punching 5 times, you know, so it can be a bit difficult. And that's, but also it is that it's difficult to put that yourself in that world in modern times, but then they have to rewind it back to 1896. It can also be what's tricky. But I've been really lucky. In this book, I had the assistance of a local historian and author, Pam Mills, who recently released a book about policing in Tunbridge and Kent. So Miss Trent originally is from Kent and Tunbridge, and basically Pam helped me with the police, that gave me floor plans of the police station, told me basically what was like in Tunbridge at the time, there's a lot of building works going on. So when like Inspector Wolf goes back to Tunbridge in this book to investigate Miss Trent's background, he meets the constable from the newly formed detective branch, so at Wren's Cross, and so like all that sort of stuff was great from her to bring it all together and to make that sense of place really. So moving beyond London, so to give you a bit more idea of actually there was police forces outside London, actually quite well established police forces. So, but I've never been to Tunbridge myself. So it was quite good to have her, somebody who lived in Tunbridge, knows literally like the back of her hand, give me like the sources, but also she was really like kind enough to then read what I'd written, to then correct certain bits. And he wouldn't have come at that like the police station, which I think is a small detail, but again, I like to think that people who live in Tunbridge like, oh, I recognise that bit, and oh yeah, that's really good. And you know, and it's also places that don't exist anymore, being able to sort of try to give an accurate description of them when all you have maybe is just the outside of the building. So it can, so that sense it can be quite difficult. I think that's what I find most difficult, is actually putting yourself in places that in one world, so you don't seem being to yourself or mixed with yourself, but in having to then like recreate it in that setting.
Yeah, the guy that I was talking to earlier today writes in 19.
So sorry, I've got my passwords arrived.
Oh, that's fine. I'll just pause.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I can't even remember what. I've completely gone blank about what we're talking about.
You were trying to say something about. We're talking about places what we find most difficult.
Yeah. Oh, Trevor.
Yeah, yeah.
He's writing. I think I can't remember. He said it was one in the 1920s or one in 1939, but
yeah,
he I think he wrote autopsy, and he said that they wouldn't have used that term back in the 1920s or whenever it was, and then something else. So it's funny little things, isn't it, that you wouldn't expect to be sort of caught out on.
Yeah, I mean it is. Yeah, it's really good. What I found like on the internet is quite a lot of places that have actually reprinted old books. So I do have a reprinted version of a textbook from 1877 about how to do a post-mortem. And so you can use that sort of thing to like get the language right, because it's obviously uses that you've got an actual example from the era of actually what they would have used, but that talks about the tools, how to prepare for the post-mortem and what to look out for and everything. So that's really handy. But yeah, it is, like I say, there's small like little terms that if I'm not sure about a slang term, I'll just look it up, and I've got a couple of dictionaries. Again, one's a reprint, but one's an actual 1894 edition of Brewer's dictionary and phrase. So that's pretty, yeah. Oxfam's great for that. Oxfam's antiquarian book section, if on the website. I could spend a fortune on there, and I have. But yeah, so
awesome.
yeah, so if you can, like, obviously buy stuff from there, because I mean, not those books, they're not in the greatest quality, but for me, it's not what they look like, it's what they've got in them. So
yeah,
so I use that Queen's London, which is published in 1896. There's pictures of different parts of London, so that's really good. Tells you a bit of facts about the different locations. And also the London Archive's got really good interiors as well, some buildings that they took pictures of in the 1950s and 60s and 70s before they were demolished and stuff. So that's really good to use like as reference. But what actually was really lucky in this one as well was I contacted the curator at the Royal British Architects, and so she actually sent me photographs of the original floor plans of Scotland Yard, of the ground floor and the first floor of Scotland Yard. So when my character's moving through the yard, it's what he sees is actually what would have been there in 1896. So that's what I love doing, those sort of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Somehow being an author opens some doors, doesn't it, to get to see cool stuff and that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like, I think once I've done the book 10, I would like to do something like a non-fiction, like Both Societies of London, which has like the floor plans, these pictures that I use, also description a bit more about detail of the fictional places that I've created as well, so you get more of an idea of actually the actual London that was around in that time. So it's not just, you know, you get basically the visuals really, as well as just the descriptions that I've used. So
yeah, I think people would love that. I'd love that. People seem to really enjoy learning about the places behind the books. So yeah, I think that would be awesome.
Yes, my friend, she was born and raised in London, and she's read the books, and she's like, even I didn't know some of the bits that you come out with. It's like, you know, that's what's good. You get people who live in London all their life and still discover things they didn't know about it. I think, yeah, it can be really good to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you a visual writer? Do you see the story playing out in your head?
Yes,
you do.
Yeah, I also sometimes get smells as well. So like Mr. Locke, whenever I write Mr. Locke, I always smell fresh cotton. I don't know why. But yeah, it's fresh cotton with Mr. Locke, and whereas with Inspector Conway, it's a bit of a musty smell. And I honestly don't know why I get that. It's not with every character, and it's not always with every like scene, but it just get that sort of whiff of, yeah, it's weird how your mind works. But yeah, it's very much visuals, and that's why I like the floor plans, because I like to, if I can, sort of have their route and their location sort of as accurate as possible. But it does help me visualize, you know, how far it is to the office. If it's upstairs, it's downstairs, and also, you know, using maps. I like using the maps from the time as well. So again, to get an idea of, you know, how far away things were, and also, you know, the class of people as well. So it's, yeah, I just like get into the detail base. Just love all the detail.
I guess it's a silly question, but would you like to see your books made into a TV series?
Yeah, people have said to me they think it would make a really good TV series. But I would love that. It'd be amazing to have, the British Society made into a TV series. But because it's Victorian though, it would be quite expensive to make. But my last Christmas sister bought me a script writing course from the guy who wrote Lion G.
Oh yeah, Jed Mercurio.
yeah. So it's a BBC Maestro course, and it's like you could access it whenever you want, basically. But it goes from idea to pitch. So I will be looking at that at some point. But I've tried writing scripts in the past, but I can't. You just fall into sort of more of a, when you're sort of, you know, a novel writer, you just get obsessed with the detail, and obviously with script writing it's more visual, and you've got to sort of step back a bit more and just let like the dialogue be more of the star really. But I think we just see if I could actually adapt something. But I probably still need somebody else who knows a bit more about it than I do to come over and actually, no, you should do this.
Yeah, that's really nice of your sister as well, isn't it? What a sweet thing to, you know.
Yeah.
And have you cast your characters? Do you have any idea? I know everyone hates that question.
Well, the first book, I did a book trailer, which is live action. So I did actually film a scene in the parlour of the local museum for the opening bit of that trailer. So Miss Trent was played by Sabrina Paul. So she's basically become like the face of Miss Trent now. So she's actually doing the voice acted on the audio book for Miss Trent and all the other female characters. So I think she would have to be Miss Trent. There's no, sort of denying that really. And then Phil Rowe, who's doing the voice acting of the other characters, he's read the books and he said, like, if you make a TV, he says, I want to be Inspector Conway. So he's basically just like, he's basically recruited, auditioned himself basically. But it's things like the characters who I had in mind to possibly play characters when I was like writing the books, I think would be too old by the time it ever got round to that really. So, but other than that, I think it just, it's just whoever they think would be the best person, I suppose. But I think it's Sabrina and Phil would have to be in there somewhere because they're basically
because they've told you
cast themselves.
Oh, that's two sorted, so that's fine.
Yeah, it was interesting because when I was trying to cast Dr. Reese is Canadian, I tried audition several people, like English people, American people, and nobody could, I felt, could like do a convincing Canadian accent other than a Canadian. So Jaden is he's natural born Canadian, so he's literally just playing Dr. Weeks, but it's such a difference because it's such, you think, oh, Canadian American accent's quite similar, but they've got subtle differences which if you're Canadian or if you're American you could spot a mile off basically. So I thought it was important to actually make sure that. So yes, if I had made TV series, I think I'd have to make a point. I know we need an actual Canadian playing the Canadian.
Well, there's plenty of them about, so I'm sure they could find someone.
Oh yeah, well yeah. You'd think so anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. Would you be having a little cameo? Would you be having a little sneak on? Not even a Hitchcock in the background, just walking past, or
have some coffee, old dead body.
Could totally
definitely the author.
Yeah.
Like Albert Hitchcock was just like walking down the back here, just promenading with my big hat in the background.
Yeah, you've got to. It's cool. I'm so my own film.
I'll just be like walking around the sets going, oh my god, I can't believe it. This is the parlour. Oh my god, this is like, okay, you can need to film them now. No, you just stand to bask in it.
Apparently, unless I guess you've adapted it yourself, they don't really let writers anywhere near the sets once they make them into films and stuff, because apparently they're pain in the arse. So like, no, that's not right, and that's not right. And the set people and the script writers like, seriously, leave it to us now. You can get over, your job is done.
Yeah, I think definitely translating it into a series or a film is obviously a completely different process, and I think you'd have to take concessions because obviously you can't have everything in there. And I think also, personally, I'd be interested to see how they would take it, how they would take the stories and the characters, and how they would. I think they would have to shift it around a bit in terms of making it a bit more of a. Because I think a TV series can be more fast paced as well, so I think you'd have to shift stuff around inevitably to make it that fast paced sort of action, but a bit more fast paced plot line. Because even though the mysteries happen quite quickly in in terms of the time span in the books, I think with everything else going on, I think things would have to develop a bit more of a faster pace. So when I say I'll try to adapt it, but I think ultimately it might end up just needing somebody else with a bit more expert eye to actually be able to sort of make that proper transition really. But I think it'd just be interesting to see what they would do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think it would be absolutely awesome to be a TV series, not even a film. I don't think it would work as a film. I think it'd have to be TV. I think
something like TV series like Ripper Street or something. Yeah, so
exactly. Yeah, it would be amazing. Oh, they can make that. They can afford to make that. It's fine.
Yeah, get Amazon. Well, I already published through your KGP scheme. Do you fancy making a TV series of the books?
Yeah, please. I'll beg. It's fine.
Well, don't ask, don't get.
Yeah, exactly.
They can only say no.
Yeah, and they probably would.
Or just ignore you. But either way, we'll be lost.
Who is this weirdo that's keeps bugging us?
But then you never know. They might still don't. They might say, we're looking for something new and fresh and different and a risk. Very risky. But but they might. You never know. Don't ask. So
Yeah. Well, is it? What did they keep it? Bridgerton was written 10 odd years ago or more. And then it took, a while, but that got made. So you never know, is all I'll say.
They
might look at it when they decide suddenly they need a new Victorian era drama.
Oh yeah, you never know.
Yeah. What's some of your best reads of this year, if you've had any time to read yourself?
And so I've mostly been like reading non-fiction stuff, to be honest, because of the book. But I think everything I've read for that, though, I think it probably is Billy Edwards' training manual, just because it's so, the way his language and like the way he describes things, and he's like, even though we no longer can enjoy the manly sport of once it once was, we are still trying to be athletes and trying to make it respectable, and and I think it was just fun. This was funny how like we did the rules, the prize ring rules actually allow for a police raid. So if there's a police raid or a magistrate's intervention, you have to all basically take it, and then you have to reconvene in the most nearest spot and as soon as possible as you possibly can to continue the fight. So it's like, even in the rules, it's like,
my God,
it's almost like, oh, we all basically want to beat the rubbish. Just do it. Get an adults here, just issue. But yeah, so that's just, again, sort of, it's that, because he's obviously gone through that change of having the bare knuckle era and then trying to change it to like trying to make a career out of the gloved kind and trying to make it respectable and try to, because it still was illegal, and basically like people trying, like, so it's now trying to get it banned, and how it sort of was a bit more going out of favour. But yes, I think that of all the books that I've read was probably the most interesting.
So then, after your book that's out today, what's coming next for you?
Book 7. So I normally release a short story collection, but this year, due to sort of difficult personal circumstances, I've had to sort of put that a bit of the back burner, really. So I will be working on some new short stories for that next year. But yeah, start to revisit my master plot plan and tweak that, and book 7 I also will want to do the first 2 spin-offs for the spin-off series basically as well. So that'll be the next year, but also the audio book for the first book, because that's quite a big project. So that's again on the agenda, really. So but also the process of possibly setting up a Twitch stream as well. So going into the world of video gaming, but with a crime and detective emphasis. So there's quite a lot of like point and click games. There's a Sherlock Holmes and Jack the Ripper game. There's quite a really good community on there. So I think it'd be quite interesting to sort of have, sort of bring all the knowledge that I've acquired from my research into sort of, onto a Twitch stream where you can like, commentate basically on the settings and the accuracy of these games, but also sort of bring people in sort of the realities of that world, and quite a few curators of different museums on to give their like input, what was reality of police, what was reality of Japan. So just another way to. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, froze for a sec.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that sounds so cool, the Twitch thing. Oh my God, like, awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, I've got quite a few friends on there now, because I'm a bit of a secret gamer, really. I haven't got time to game anymore, but I've loved sort of survival horror games, Resident Evil, Silent Hill. So there's quite a good community on there. So I've collected quite a few like streamers on there, like Matt RPD, Dr. Best, Liam McKnighty, and I've met up with them a couple of times at the Insomnia Game Festival in Birmingham. So I just think, it's just a different way to access sort of the history, and because even video games very much are a lot more respected than they used to be, and I think game developers are keen to sort of make things accurate or to like do their research. So I think it'd be interesting just to dissect different games and how how the maybe current or maybe intended it, but also those more, because I've got Christie's got PC games, like or Murder on the Express, and then there were none. So again, introducing people who might not have heard these authors, which I'm as unbelievable as that may be, you know, but through like PC games, and also just through crime fiction in general, and sort of dissecting how traditional crime fiction worked. And yeah, so that's going to be the aim. So I've got some of the equipment. I just need to now bring it all together and hopefully launch that in the new year. So
wow, that's really exciting. That's very cool.
yeah, so that'd be quite, yeah. We'll see if we could probably have technological issues probably every single stream, but we'll try.
That'll be fine.
Yeah, and also because, you know, hopefully with like the audio book as well, I could possibly get like Phil and Sabrina on at some point, and they could do sound bites and everything for the channel and stuff. So there's a lot of like possibilities really you can bring into it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's quite interactive anyway, isn't it? So yeah.
It is, yeah. And if you get that community as well, you get sort of, you know, friends for life basically, you know, and get that interaction and rapport with people, and it's just have a good time. And also it's an excuse to game as well, basically. Excuse to be a video gaming, so you know that can't be a bad thing. Bit of relaxation, because obviously you can, like, you know, when you're writing, as you know, you could quite a lonely sort of solitary sort of activity. So it's good to actually have a bit of downtime and have an excuse to have downtime, because otherwise you feel a bit bad. I should be writing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? You this sort of need to not write, but sometimes you're like, but I should be, like, I've got this time. But
yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, go mad, I think.
Yeah.
What else? I was just going to ask you something else as well. I can't remember. Oh, are you going to go to any? Have you got any events next year?
So it's recently been announced that I'm on the historic fiction panel for the first UK Crime Book Club live event in Leeds in June. So I'll be on the stage there. So that'll be fun. And then in July, I'm in Birmingham for the Author City event that was rescheduled from last year. So I'll be just doing my stall there with books to sign and everything. People come and have a chat and everything. So I've got a book. I've got a short story in there, anthology for the Birmingham event, which I need to go back to revisit too, basically. And that should be out next year as well, for the anthology for that. So basically, awesome. Yeah, the anthology obviously it's stories based around Birmingham. So basically, I've got Miss Trent going to Birmingham, being invited there by the Birmingham Bow Street Society, because there's about 32 Bow Streets in the UK. So technically, they could have 32 different franchises if they really wanted to.
You could be writing forever.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, I'll see you at both of those. I'm going. I bought ticket number 1 for the UK Crime Book Club event because apparently I was really keen. And then I'm sponsoring the Birmingham one.
Oh yeah, so, you are. Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of have to be there. Really, I think that's kind of the deal.
Yeah.
So,
that'd be really good. Yeah, because obviously you couldn't go to the Books on the Beach last year, could you? Because of the rail strikes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But the Books on the Beach 2024 is on my birthday, I think. So I'm going to try and go to that one.
Oh yeah, just tell everybody it's my birthday. Oh, have a free book. Oh, thank you very much.
You know, I mean, if you can't milk it, then you know, what's the point?
Yeah, big badge, light up badge that flashes my birthday. Big like birthday cake has. It's your birthday. No.
Yeah, it's funny because this next year will be my 40th. So luckily, it sort of skips that, and then it's on my birthday. I'll be 41, so no one cares then anyway. It's fine.
Oh no, you just still got to say, well, obviously, you know, because you didn't know you went last year. I now need 41 free books rather than 40 free books.
Yeah, that's all very well, but I've got to get them home.
You could maybe post them to you.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, there's ways and means.
Oh, yeah, see, book lovers, we're all together on this.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
No, I think that's everything. I think very think.
And I guess you don't have a copy yet, if you're still waiting.
No, not physical copy. No, because I had problems with the delivery of the proof. So I'm hoping that's going to arrive today. It's supposed to be up today, and I can then approve it. But yeah, I haven't actually got a physical copy. I'm afraid. So just imagine, like,
If there's a picture, I'll post a picture for you. And
it's got boxes on the front, basically.
Fair enough.
I was just like, what's a pugilist? I'm like, it's a boxer.
Oh. Yeah. I knew that. I can't remember. Probably weirdly from, I think, 8 out of 10 Cats or something, or Would I Lie to You, where they're talking about the guy with the weird voice that had the monocle. Can't think of his name.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, him. And I think they talked about him and said,
Chris Eubank.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason I know. I love TV sometimes, just random things you pick up.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
So where can people buy the new book if they would like to, and where can they find out more about you if they'd like to?
So the book's available through Amazon. So the paperback should be available in the next few days once I get the proof to approve it. But the e-book's available currently, and from day the 5th to the 7th of December, the 5th book, The Maxwell Murder, and the Bow Street Society Character Guide on free download to mark the release of the 6th book. And basically, if you want to find a bit more, you go to the official website, which is bowstreetsociety.com. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as Bow Street Society, and yeah, so I've got a newsletter, I guess I could say, it comes out every month, so you can subscribe to that if you want. That's a free newsletter, which includes sort of serialized short stories, authentic Victorian recipes, slang word of the month, and other news and other recommendations.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.